Good afternoon. Welcome to the final Authors Hour of the season. My name is Fred Zurm. I represent the Friends of the Chautauqua Writers Center. We are a volunteer organization that aims to support and supplement the official activities of the institution's Writers Center. At halftime, I will tell you a little bit more about the Friends of the Chautauqua Writers Centers and how you might join our efforts. But today we have two great poets, and I'm eager to present them to you. First, we have Mathias Svalina, is the author of 7 books, most recently America at Play from Trident Books. He is an editor for Octopus Books and runs a dream delivery service. I will let him explain what a dream delivery service is if he wants to, but I give you Mathias Svalina. Go for it.
Hello. Thank you for having us for this reading and part of the Chautauqua, the myriad Chautauqua events. I'm here in Denver, Colorado, and I'm going to read some poems from a book of mine that came out just before the lockdown with the pandemic. I had 2 books that came out then. One is called America at Play, and this one's called The Depression. It's a collaboration between a photographer, John Pack, and myself. And it's all fables about living with chronic depression. And because of the pandemic, this is the first time I've read from the book since it came out. And it is dedicated to Summer Browning, whose house I've been staying at while I'm in Denver. So I'm happy to be reading these poems here. None of them have titles. They're all little fables, so I'll kind of pause between them. A monster lies at the bottom of the lake. You never know the monster is a monster. The monster does not look like a monster. He does not look like anything anyone could fear. When you swim in the lake, the monster will not attack. The monster is the only one who knows he is a monster. When the monster looks into the mirror, he sees a hole. All the monster knows is how it feels to want to fill a hole. I must look at every part of me to remain a fixed thing. When inattentive, parts of me fall off of me. So many times I've risen from daydreams to find an arm slipping off, my knee on the floor, memories drizzled away. But there's a sense of belonging in fading away, a tumbling, a release. I look across the mall and see body parts scattered across the shiny floor, and I and the other shoppers just laugh. We greet each other lovingly. We drink lemonade. We drink pink champagne. I bury the lost parts of me in the desert past the food court, digging deep into the sand with what's left of me. Hi, Julie. There was an exploding bear. They were always exploding. This exploding made sleeping difficult and interaction with other bears tricky. At the Home Depot, an unexploding bear would ask the exploding bear how they were doing, and the exploding bear would reply, "I'm exploding." Then at the park some months later, both walking their dogs, the same unexploding bear would again ask the exploding bear how they were doing, and the exploding bear would again reply, "I'm exploding." It got so that all the unexploding bears stopped inquiring of the exploding bear. And when the exploding bear walked into Home Depot, the unexploding bears pretended not to see them. At night, the exploding bear would return to their cave and lie in bed, feeling the constant excruciation of their explosion, a pain obliterating all else. Once, the exploding bear, school bus drove by. Once the exploding bear found another exploding bear, and they went to bed together and pressed the pain of their explosions together, but by morning, they could not remember each other's names. Occasionally, the bear would do things like go on a hike or listen to Shostakovich or catch salmon to take their mind off the explosion, and sometimes it would work for a bit, and they'd think things like, this hike is great, or this piano concerto is great, or this salmon is great, but then they'd feel the explosion again, and it would be all the more painful for having been briefly forgotten. A man opens the newspaper, and all the headlines fall out onto him and cover him with ink and words. With soap, he tries to wash them off, but some headlines slip inside him and hide and multiply. Soon his blood is full of tiny headlines. They clot in his liver and they clot in his brain. They fill the tubes to his heart and lungs. At night, he coughs up headlines that blacken his lips. He goes to the doctor to have the headlines removed. The doctor sucks out all his blood and replaces it with sterile water. The man goes home, feeling limber and light. He sits on his favorite chair with the TV on and sets a big bowl of ice cream on the coffee table. The man lies on his bed and folds his hands to say his prayers, but when he tries to move his lips, he cannot move his lips. He licks at the inside of his mouth, but there are no lips there, not even a seam. He touches his head and finds no hair there, no ears, no mouth, no nose, no eyes. Everything he's ever known to be himself is gone. He sleeps like an angel carved out of bone. The morning after prom, the boy who had been named Prom King woke to find himself, though the prom was over, still Prom King. At the diner, the manager wouldn't take his money. On the house, my lord, the manager said with a bow. On Elm Street, cars pulled over to let him pass. Children waved and giggled. Adults saluted. His prom kingliness didn't fade after days or after weeks. He grew accustomed to his reign and took the free coffee and the flattery. He had it all. But his kingliness wanted more. His kingliness wanted to be everywhere, in each meeting, in each bed, at each showing of each movie, at the head of each table when each dinner was served, and then afterward washing each dish. Soon, nothing happened without the prom king. Each night he spoke the news on each TV station and on each radio. He sang and played guitar and drums and bass and flute for each band at each club. He delivered and then opened and read each piece of mail. He changed each minivan's axle, each Subaru's muffler. All the while, townspeople crowded around him, jostling and scrambling for a glimpse, noses slugging glass doors and windows as he passed. The prom king's kingliness could only see itself as the center of a story, of every story, all stories merging into only one story. By the end of the story, the prom king cannot remove the plastic crown from his head. He undresses, but the prom king's sash is still there. In the mirror, only kingliness looks back, bejeweled and severe. He tries to say his own name and only finds an adoring crowd. The boy who had become the prom king sneaks off one moonless night, leaving his kingliness behind. He finds a cave and walls himself in with bricks, feeling more and more understandable as each brick is added, until finally, in the darkness, he dissolves into only himself. And me? I too often want, where there is darkness, more darkness. All I want is darkness, fun, and monsters with flaming teeth. I hope you can hear the kids screaming while they're playing in the background here. It's a really good noise. A woman looked everywhere for ghosts, in drops of rain, hanging on rails, beneath her fingernails, in twine. She looked so hard, her looking made each thing a ghost. Ghost clouds, ghost taxes, ghost paramedics peeking around a ghost ash tree. but she never saw a real ghost. Finally, one day she gave up and stopped looking for ghosts. Rain fell outside her windows. It looked only like rain. That night she saw her first real ghost in the grocery store, inside the glass door to the frozen food. The ghost stared out and gestured for the woman to open the door. The woman opened the door. Then she removed a sack of chicken nuggets and placed the sack of chicken nuggets in her blue plastic basket. She did not help the ghost. After that, ghosts were everywhere. In the glove compartment, in the pockets of old jackets she hadn't worn in years. She flew to Indianapolis for a conference and a ghost sat beside her. When he sat down, the ghost gave her a quick smile, buckled himself in, and for the entire flight read a crime novel. She decided to kiss the ghost and leaned in to kiss the ghost. But when her lips touched the ghost's lips, she found herself pressed against the gross lips of a living man. I'm going to read one more from this book, The Depression. There are 3 different kinds of future. In one, I can step through walls, but never entirely through. In the second, I have the widest arms, but when they touch another person, the touching parts become glass. In the third, someone is far away. I can feel them in the wind that shakes the aspens, in the cramping of my cheeks. When they arrive, a wilderness will arrive. And I'm going to read 1 or 2 more from this little thing. I've been doing a show of drawings of dreams of the actor Sam Elliot with his handlebar mustache and his wild eyebrows, called 1000 Sam Elliot Dreams. And I'm filling the walls of this gallery space with drawings of Sam Elliot. And I also wrote a little zine called 1000 Sam Elliot Dreams, which has 10 Sam Elliot dreams in it. So I'm going to read 2 of these. But I forgot to choose ahead of time which ones. You are a photographer, shooting a series of photos for a magazine ad campaign for a line of newly healthy soups that can be eaten to go. The soups are packaged in plastic tubes, and one is supposed to bite the end of the soup tube and slurp the soup up. You carefully arrange the lights in the studio, position the models so that they look natural, but so that the scene is also well composed, and the soup tubes visually featured. You take some test shots, make some adjustments, and then, just as you're about to start taking photos, Sam Elliot rushes in, laughing maniacally, steals the soup tubes out of the model's hands. He runs to the exit doors, rips open the soup tubes, and pours them into his mouth, messily, soup running down his chin and chest, noodles and chunks and beans all caught in his mustache. He kicks the exit doors open and flees, laughing in a shrieking, high-pitched tone. So these are part of the dream delivery service thing that I've been doing for a handful of years, in which I take subscribers and write dreams and deliver them to people every day, except now I'm drawing them for the gallery wall, and I did them for the Museum of Contemporary Art Denver as well. It's the end of the world, or it will be in a few moments. You walk up a small to wait for the end of the world, but when you reach the top, you find Sam Elliot sitting there. Hey, you say, you're Sam Elliot. He just smiles. I guess that doesn't matter anymore, you say. Not that it doesn't matter that you're you, but that you're famous. He nods and smiles again. He gestures to the grass beside him. You sit. Crazy times, you say. He smiles and nods again. You get comfortable and wait. Beside you, Sam waits too. He doesn't say anything or even do anything, but you find it comforting that he is here, You thought, when you'd walked up to this hill, that you wanted to experience the end of the world alone. But now, sitting beside Sam, you're happy you're not alone. And then the sky splits open, a sound so huge that you feel it through the earth, not in your ears or body. The end comes rushing toward you. The end of the world will reach you in seconds. It is a feeling like a feeling you once had as a child, a feeling so totally yourself and your own, there is no word for it, no potential to share that experience. You sneak a glance over to Sam and tears are rolling down his face. You know, in that instant before the end of the world reaches you and everything is over, that Sam is feeling that Sam is feeling that same feeling you're feeling, that feeling you felt as a child, that feeling you thought no one else would ever understand or be able to feel. And you know then that everyone, everywhere, as the end of the world streaks toward them, is feeling that feeling too. You're not alone. You've never been alone. Thanks for listening. Those are my poems.
Thank you very much. I'm trying to coin a new phrase for your type of poetry, your school of poetry that you're beginning. So far I've come up with surreal naturalism. I don't, but I like the combination of ghosts with chicken nuggets and blue shopping baskets and all that. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Just a reminder, at the end, we will have Q&A so people can ask about your fascinating poems. I promised to tell you more about the Friends of the Chautauqua Writers Center, and I know you've all been waiting for that, so I will deliver. The season's about over here, so most of these things are in the past tense for this year and the future tense for next year that we hope is a relatively normal year. We sponsor the Authors Hour, 2 Chautauqua-related authors every Thursday at 12:15. In a while, I'll put a YouTube link up there so you can consult the videos of those Authors Hours. We've had some great ones. On Sundays, but not this coming Sunday, but all the other Sundays, at 5 o'clock, we had open mic. That we did not record for YouTube, but it's basically open to writers and listeners 18 years old and older. We sponsored a writing contest that Mathias helped judge. The award ceremony for that is on YouTube. We have categories for all ages of writers in prose and poetry. We have the Favorite Poem Project initiated here by Robert Pinsky. I think this was our 12th annual Favorite Poem Project, where about a dozen Chautauquans read poems that mean a lot to them and briefly explained why those poems are personal favorites. Next year, when we're back in person, we hope, we will have our annual potluck called Dinner with Friends. We'll also have the book fair, the Authors Among Us book fair on Vester Plaza, and we'll reinitiate our informal critiques after the Poet's Brown Bag. I'm going to just share screen. When we go on YouTube, there might be some people who don't know anything about Chautauqua, so the first thing I'll do is show you where I am, which is on the porch of the Literary Arts Center, where these readings normally occur. And let's see if I can finesse the show all windows, because I'm not seeing the window that I want. Guess what? We have a little technology glitch here. Let me see if I can find the picture of the Writers Center, and I can't for some reason. Okay, I'll see if I can edit that in later. Don't know where it disappeared to. Anyway, that's about the friends of the Chautauqua Writer Center and their technologically inept executive director. Next, we have poet Marjorie Wanner. And Marjorie, I just remind you, you'll have to unmute yourself so that they can hear your wonderful poem. She submitted two first-person bios that kind of represent two sides of Marjorie. The first bio: I'm a farm girl. That's not something you outgrow. I've been living it 90 years now. I'm such a farm girl that my father left me a cow in his will. And then there's the writing side of Marjorie, once again in the first person. I come from a bunch of teachers. All my grandparents were teachers and all my dad's sisters. One of my aunts paved the way for any of us willing to go to college. I would tell that aunt now what I wrote my first letter to her when I was 5 and started first grade. Dear Auntie Sophie, see, I can write. And take it from me, Marjorie really can write. I think you're in for a treat if she unmutes herself. Lower left corner there, Marjorie. Click on the microphone. Or call for help from the other room.
Okay, unmuted now.
Great. Marjorie, take it away with your poems.
These poems are from my book, Sparks in the Dark. You will have to stop me when I run out of time.
I will.
Baby in a bathtub. This beginning is from when I was a child. A baby sits in a gray galvanized tub in front of a gray cross-paneled door, eyes squinted against the glaring sun, his face pensive, as if he can almost see the future. Summer drones on. The men bringing in a second cutting of hay, women baking pies in a hot kitchen, a child swats flies, a maiden aunt minds the baby, takes this somber picture with a black box camera. People tell me, write about what you know. This picture is all I know of my brother John. This also is from my younger years. My brother, the teacher, my big brother taught me how to milk old Bessie, how to harness Polly and Dick and scuffle a field, how to tell an oak from an ash, a soft maple from a hard maple, how to pull a crosscut saw and stack firewood. My big brother taught me how to load a gun and shoot cherry birds, how to play gin rummy while the sap was boiling down. He taught me how to play Old Black Joe on the xylophone, how to whistle through my thumbs. He showed me constellations in the sky, the bears, the goat, a ram. He taught me how to bake banana bread and hook a rug. When I was old enough, he taught me how to drive a car, but I had to learn by myself how to grieve when he died. Fireflies. Now I'm getting a little older. Well, this is actually when I married my second husband. Moving china in cardboard cartons from my house to his, beginning a new life with a new husband. I see among the packing cloths I gave him, tossed askew in the back of his Pontiac, that dark, drab wool quilt, 80 squares of black and gray. I want to snatch it back, tell him it's too good to cover furniture, but it was old when I first saw it 40 years ago. Back of the rattly robin egg blue coupe of my first love. I remember it, a giant checkerboard spread under a starry sky. In the middle of a meadow, moisture seeping through the batting, the night warm, Mosquitoes droning, landing on our sweaty skin, fireflies. The memory comes flooding back, guilt-ridden still, like the dampness spreading through my cotton skirt that summer night. The astronomy of love. I would buy you the moon with a fence around it, you used to say, and I knew you would if you could. A picket fence with roses climbing every post. You said, I love you. Then asked, do I say that too often? I laughed and answered, I don't think so. Who else are you saying it to? Don't tease me, you begged. And I teased all the more. When I was cooking in the kitchen and you wandered through, you told me, I can't keep my hands from touching you. I said, try the duct tape in your toolbox. The moon is blue tonight, that rare phenomenon I've never seen before. It shines through my bedroom window, brighter than the blazing sun at thrashing time in August. I search its shimmering surface for the fence I know is gone, and the roses as dead as you have been these 30 years. This is my husband. This is my husband saying goodbye to our son. It was the last trip up of all my children because my husband was dying. The artist. She talks with garbled speech, walks splay-legged. Her arms move in tight, unyielding warp. Her face is stiff, expressionless. Children are afraid of her. She holds up in rented room, carves designs in sawed-off shelf boards with chisels from a hardware store, smears on black ink, prints on clumsy homemade press, clear, rich art that flows without garbled splay or warp. There she is, the artist. When she had failed third grade, we took her to the eye doctor, and he said she had nystagmus. Her eyes jerked all the time. And there's nothing to cure that because that's a brain problem. So when she was 18, her cerebral palsy was diagnosed. She died this summer. Oh, when they put her in rehab, and she asked rehab to pay her way to the Art Institute in Pittsburgh. And they said they'd never do that, but they did it for her. So she died this summer. Spring. 3 boys and a girl in the creek, flipping sticks at water snakes, always a sure sign of spring. The number of boys may vary, but there must be the token girl, the boys showing off, chasing her, laughing at her screams, snake dangling on a fork of a stick. It's all there but the apple tree. And some spring, when they turn 15, they will discover the orchard in full bloom. Adam and Eve. A pair of harlequin snakes, let's call them Adam and Eve, crawl along the cellar sill, working their scaly lengths over old green insulators, knocking them one by one to the dusty floor, while they, Adam and Eve, remain a single entwined creature with 2 long, thin necks and beady-eyed heads rising from their one conjoined body. Adam and Eve slip off the sill, sliding, falling down the concrete block wall onto the workbench, grip its edge with their fat shared tail, drape over the side, plop down on the floor, lie there, locked in connubial bliss, unaware that snakes don't wed, and even more unaware how transient is connubial bliss. Farm boy in Korea. Every time he left his camp and walked the road to Taigon 2, he passed the house of Mama San. No matter how fast he strode, Her ladies swarmed around, one sure to fall in step, strolling by his side, her body bumping his in even stride. Her sing-song question always the same. Hi, GI, you want a short time, $2? His answer always the same. No thanks, I can't today. She'd say, why not, GI? Got a girl back home? He'd say, yeah, got a girl. Okay, some other time, she'd say. Then she'd drop back and he'd go on alone. He didn't have any girl back home. He was the same GI who sold his cigarette allotment to the black market guy, then donated his ill-gotten income to the orphanage up the road. He loved being a farm boy in the Army. He was a neighbor. Out of Africa. The movie had been everything he promised. The screen, alive with lions on the prowl, zebras grazing the veld, fleeing gazelles, Karen and her love weaving into each other's lives, the poignant dialogue as if someone were speaking it direct to me or I were speaking it to someone else. The moments when there were no words at all and nothing else existed but the two of them. That final scene when he flew off and crashed to death and she read to an athlete dying young beside his grave. My voice was tear-streaked yet as we sat in the restaurant, the movie melding with my husband's recent death. But I found the words to say such a somber story made me want a hand to hold. The friend I came with reached his hands across the table. They lay there waiting, strong, calloused hands. But to me, they looked so soft, I yearned to touch them, take their warmth. But I couldn't make mine move. It was a long, long silence before I said, I guess I'm not ready yet. And he took back those gentle hands. That was the soldier. He lived across the road. And this is after I married him. Mother's quarters on oak bed. My love and I sleep in my mother's bed. In peace we sleep this gentle night in June, and on the floor beside us sleeps old Red. My mother, these past 20 years, is dead. Through our west window shines a silent moon. My love and I sleep in my mother's bed, the one my father bought when they were wed. Down by the lake, I hear a lonely loon, and on the floor beside us sleeps old Red. The cat comes down the hall with cautious tread. On nights like this, the morning comes too soon. My love and I sleep in my mother's bed. Two are better than one, the preacher said. We curl into each other, spoon to spoon, while on the floor beside us sleeps old Red. Now in my dreams, I smell the rising bread. Tomorrow, we'll have toast and jam at noon. My love and I sleep in my mother's bed, and on the floor beside us sleeps old Red. That's the soldier. After we were married. And local boy shoots man. We had one of those school shootings in our school system. We didn't have guns when I was young. I want to tell the world, but that's a lie. I shot cherry birds when I was 8. My big brother taught me how. Same brother taught me how to hook a rug. We all had guns. Every farmer on our road used one in the dark of night when a weasel was in the chicken house, or a neighbor's dog was killing sheep, when an animal was injured, like the blind horse that blundered into the barn overshot and broke down through. We shot the hogs to be butchered. Some people just stuck theirs. We shot ours first, more humane, Dad said. We shot pheasants, rabbits, woodchucks, deer, Any raccoon in the corn patch between dawn and dusk. Only rabid raccoons come out in daylight. One might bite a watchful dog or, God forbid, a curious child. Death was sure and agonizing. In truth, we had several guns. A 12-gauge shotgun with more kick than Gilbert's mule, a .22 rifle, my older brother's BB gun, great-grandpa's musket hanging over the fireplace. The only gun we didn't have was a pistol, a people shooting gun, but we didn't need one. We let God or some accident of chance decide when people ought to die. But even that's a lie. When we pulled the horsehair plaster from the whitewashed kitchen wall, we found the muzzle-loading pistol Grandpa's cousin had used to kill himself when they were still just boys. One old farmer's solution to juvenile crime. I mean, this is from a farmer's viewpoint. Give a boy a shovel, let him pitch manure. Let it be February when the cows are in the barn all day and all night, and everything they eat turns into steaming sludge. Let the cows be asleep with their tails in the trench when he opens the barn door. Let his back strain against the shovel weight until all he feels is ache, and he is saturated with the stench of wet manure. Let him carry water to the house before he washes, before he changes his clothes and eats breakfast. Let him walk 5 miles to school. Maybe then he will be too tired to hate. When I was going to school, I walked 3 miles to school, but some of the kids walked 5 miles to school. The hazards of hunting. 4 years ago, Joe Butler's Morgan mare was shot. Last year, it was Tom Schaefer's Jersey heifer. Now this red pickup pulls into the barnyard where Bill Murphy and his boy stand planning their day's work. They know that shiny new truck. It's the city guy who bought the Propec place. The guy rolls down his window and yells, "Hey, Bill, look at that mountain goat I found grazing in your neighbor's meadow." I got him square between the eyes. The boy stares into the bed of the truck. Bill comes over to have a look, and there it is, Sam Porter's blood-soaked billy goat. Bill leans in and mutters to his boy, "Son, some people should never, never own a gun." I wrote this in memory of Trayvon Martin. Winter of '78. Ma died that woeful winter, frigid cold and snow so deep they kept her casket in the back room until the first spring thaw. After the funeral, I rode home with Dad, put the flowers in the parlor. They froze. The beginning of a brooding long winter. Every day, Dad dug a track to the barn, milked the cows, fed and bedded them, kept the wood coming and the larder full. I cooked his meals, washed his overalls, kept house for him, the way you keep house when you heat only 2 rooms. Some doleful days I pulled on my boots and waded hip deep out to the mailbox, hoping someone still remembered me. During afternoon respite from chores, we sat beside the window and watched the animated flurry at the feeder. Cardinals, jays, nuthatches, juncos, always welcome, always there. One day, late in winter, evening grosbeaks came. I welcomed their presence as the Dutch welcome storks in their chimney, harbingers of good. Birdsong again in the lilacs. At the Lutheran home, beyond his window pane, 3 half-grown alley cats dig in the gravel dirt, and 7 noisy boys play kick the can in the parking lot, while Dad sits waiting in his room with the other old man who also doesn't know what day it is, the nurse's name, and why he can't go home. Dad, after all those years of farming, and when he was 90, got dementia. And they said, put him in a home. I don't like homes. Too soon. He died too soon. We always hear when anybody dies. My brother died at 38. I miss his azure eyes. My husband, who was in his prime, died. Void at 55. I know he died too soon. I wish he were alive. My father died at 91. He'd said goodbye that noon. They gave him tubes and brought him back. They thought he died too soon. The day of the brown thrasher. I was back living with Dad, doing chores Mother had done, cooking, not as she did, but enough to keep us fed. Cleaning, washing clothes. I kept Dad's life running as it had for 80 years, plus the 5 before he was big enough to milk a cow. I was churning, butter almost ready. The latch on the back door lifted. Come, Dad said, come and see this beautiful sight. I followed him out past the pump, beyond the barn, down the lane to the half-finished nest in the brush by the pasture gate. She swung down, wings rusty red, a slender bird, strands of witch black horsetails streaming from her beak. First brown thrasher I had ever seen. I stand beside Dad's open casket, statuary head and foot, soft lights, amazing grace in the background. 5 years I mothered my dad, who went to the barn at midnight to milk cows we'd already auctioned off. That brown thrasher still swoops low, black horsetail in her beak, and Dad still bids me, come and see this beautiful sight. Thank you all for letting me read.
We can unmute if you want and give both our poets a hand. Okay, thank you so much, Marjorie. As I've said before, your poetry takes the top of my head off, so Emily Dickinson was right.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry I take heads off, but thank you for always wanting me back.
Do we have some questions from our audience? You can either unmute and just ask the question. You can put a question in chat. You could even raise the blue icon hand in participants. Don't be shy. I do have a question, first of all, for Mathias. And be sure to unmute when you answer the question. Okay, good. You called that first batch of readings fables. Aesop, at least, always had a little moral at the end of his fable, you know, and the moral is, do you think of those little writings as something that do have morals, that you could say, and the moral of this fable is?
No, I think them more as fables with the morals cut off, or fables that reach toward a moral that isn't there, maybe. Kind of in the tradition of the Hasidic fables that Martin Buber collected, and that were a big influence on Kafka's short stories, which then were a big influence on Italo Calvino and Julio Cortázar and other writers of sort of narrative, fabulist surrealism. So I think of them sort of with the tone or the rhetoric of fables, but without ever reaching a stable meaning, maybe.
Well, in some ways that makes them more evocative because it's not confined to the little fable. And I love the one about the headlines because that's sort of how I feel with CNN sometimes. Okay, you know, that you sort of overdose and Um,
Yeah.
okay. Julie Phillips Brown, Julie Downtown Brown asks, I would ask this with my voice, but a salty 5-year-old is watching Thomas the Tank Engine in the background. This is only sort of poetry-related question, but where are you both finding joy right now, if you are? And how has your writing process adapted to this moment? And we have somebody joining us very late. So how do you find joy during this pandemic? And has your writing process been changed, somehow adapted to this moment? Either one of you.
Can I wait?
Yeah, sure.
Well, I'm I live out in the country, and I love I go for walks. And one morning I saw a deer, a buck crossing the road in front of me. The next morning there was a raccoon, and I'm just part of nature, and I like that.
Do you find yourself writing during these days?
Did I shut something off?
No, we can still hear you. At least,
I shut, Tom,
yeah.
I shut something off. I pushed a button and
Hey, well,
and I shut.
we can still hear you. Your image is frozen. Oh, now it's on.
Oh.
Go ahead. You're fine.
Okay, that's good.
So are you writing these days or no?
Well, I wrote a poem after my daughter died, and she had been in one home. They gave her 6 months to live, so they put her in the home. And then they got it down to 6 weeks that she had left. And then they got it down to 6 days, and finally in the 6 days, they got her into hospice. So I was reminded of when I was a girl, my mother used to bring people home to die. She ran her own hospice. And when my grandmother had already died, but my grandfather didn't show up for breakfast one day. So my mother went into the parlor bedroom, and there he was lying with his hands on his chest, dead. And so my take on my daughter's problems of getting her to a place where she could be on hospice and stuff, there's something to be said for one night going to bed and waking in the morning dead, like Grandpa did.
Yeah. Mathias, are you able to find joy, and how has your writing process been affected?
I don't know about joy. I've been trying to find ways to be helpful to other people, I think, in whatever small ways of connecting with people that I know the pandemic has been difficult on a mental health level, and trying to make sure that I'm checking in with them and connecting with friends. I think a lot of people have been in contact with friends that maybe let contact slide more, and just trying to find, more consciously trying to find a place of usefulness for myself. And then on a personal level, writing is very self-medicating for me. So the more I write, the more I'm able to stay in that space of escapism, really. So that's, I've been writing with the Dream Delivery service, and with writing for the project for the Museum of Contemporary Art, and now working on these dreams that I'm drawing, but I think of as writing anyway because I'm not an artist. So that my mind is not built for downtime. So the more I occupy myself with things I can do in my community, things I can do to try to raise money for people who are in difficult positions or things I can do to just stay in the writing mind are all good things for me. And in 5 days, I'm going to bike out over the Rocky Mountains and be biking through the mountains for a month, which I'm very much looking forward to. being alone camping in the mountains for a month sounds like maybe the best thing I can do right now for myself.
Yeah. Okay. Do we have any other questions?
Marjorie, your poems are really wonderful. I was really, really happy to hear them. That's not a question, but thank you.
Thank you.
I thought dynamite duo. I thought you were great. Great punch there. I appreciate that. I think I'll bring this, our final author's hour of the season, to a close. Let's give another round of applause to Mathias and Marjorie.
And to Fred. Thank you, Fred, for everything you do.
You're welcome. This has been different, but to be honest, when you talk about a little joy, this has brought some joy to me. You know, having this series. We hope to see everyone next year. We hope in person, although I think we're going to try to find some hybrid way of sharing it on Zoom and YouTube as well as on the porch here. Anyway, everyone stay well. Marjorie and Mathias, you can stay for a moment after I stop the recording, but thank you, everyone. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.